During this short film, I'd like to explore a really important issue with you, which is the importance of clinical leadership and the implications of clinical leadership for postgraduate medical education and training. And I'd like to explore this with you through the lens of 5 questions. The first of those 5 is, so what is clinical leadership anyway? The second is, why does it matter? The third is, so what are the implications of that for your role as medical education supervisors and leadership development throughout postgraduate medical education training? The fourth is, so what is your role in that? And the fifth is, what are the resources available that might help and enable you to really fulfill this role? So what do we mean by clinical leadership? If we think about a very popular definition by Jonas, the thinking around this is that it's essentially engaging healthcare professionals in undertaking leadership roles and responsibilities, where leadership is defined quite clearly as being involvement in setting direction, vision and values, in promoting and inspiring the same. But maybe more importantly even than that, making sure that clinical concerns, patient care is absolutely at the heart of everything the organisation does. Which leads to question 2, why does this matter? Whilst it would seem almost obvious that it would matter to have patient care at the heart of everything an organisation does, there's an increasing body of research that points to a strong relationship between the engagement of clinical leaders in leadership and healthcare outcomes and the quality of patient care. We just need to look at a few references and resources to illustrate this. So you might like to have a look at a 2017 publication by the King's Fund called From Goodwill to Good Practice, which illustrates examples of the impact and influence and positive contribution of clinical leaders to innovative services from Northumbria to the Netherlands. But let's also think more broadly about the context in which we're operating. That means that clinical leadership matters more, maybe now, than it has before, which is that we face a situation of an ageing population, long-term conditions, comorbidities, a pressure on and for innovation and productivity against a backdrop of financial constraint. So it's now no longer an option for a clinical leader to think only of themselves as being an expert. It's absolutely critical that clinicians think of themselves as leaders. And what's the significance of this for postgraduate medical education, which of course then leads immediately to thinking about your role as a medical education supervisor in this? Well, many influences here again, but let's point to 2 prevalent influences. The first, of course, is the fact that in 2017, the GMC, the General Medical Council, promulgated and published the generic professional capabilities framework, Domain 5 being about leadership and Domain 6 being about quality improvement. And as we know, we're now seeing those domains being embedded by 2020 in the curricula of all the Royal Colleges. But put that to one side as an influence. Let's also think about the fact that healthcare is provided through complex systems of organisations, of relationships, and at many different levels. And our trainees work at those many different levels, and we want to make sure that doctors in training are introduced to leadership so they can play their part in contributing to our most effective health and care systems. Which of course brings us to the question of your role. It is quite challenging to develop leadership, and it can take time, so we're certainly not suggesting that you suddenly become an overnight leadership facilitator, an expert in leadership thinking. We hope, though, that you will see the importance of being able to integrate leadership learning through your day-to-day work with your trainees, through structuring experience and through reflective conversations on the experience that your trainees have. And of course, what we hope you'll find enabling in doing that is a series of resources that the NHS Leadership Academy has produced to enable you in that role. So the resource is called the Leadership Conversations in Postgraduate Medical Education Training Resource Pack, and what we hope you'll find useful about that, if you could refer to page 10 as I'm talking, is that you'll see that there are resources and suggested experiences illustrated for you to be able to discuss with your trainees to guide their exposure to different leadership challenges, and also to inform and influence the kinds of materials that you might suggest they refer to. The other thing that you'll find in the pack is some information about how you might facilitate a reflective conversation and how you might undertake a coaching conversation, both of which we hope you'll find extremely useful in supporting your trainees to develop their leadership learning throughout their early career. And on screen now you'll see a link to the latest version of the Leadership Conversations in Postgraduate Medical Education Training Resource Pack, which we know you'll find valuable.